ugly duckling. Everything was so lovely out in the country. It was summer. The cornfields were yellow, and the oats were green. The hay had been put up in stacks in the green meadows, and there the stork went about on his long, thin, red legs talking Egyptian, for that was the language he had learned from his mother. All around the fields and meadows were great forests, and in the midst of the forests lay deep lakes. Yes, it certainly was glorious out there in the country. In the midst of the sunshine lay an old farm surrounded by deep canals, and from the wall down to the water grew great burdocks, so high that little children could stand upright under the tallest of them. It was just as wild as in the thickest wood, and here sat a duck upon her nest. She must hatch out her little ducklings, you see. But she was now almost tired out because it took such a long time and visitors were so few and far between. The other ducks liked better to swim about in the canal than to run up and sit down under a burdock to quack with her. At last one eggshell after another cracked open. Peep! Peep! In all the eggs were little creatures that stuck out their heads. Quack! Quack! Said the duck, and out the little ones tumbled as fast as they could, looking all about them under the green leaves. And the mother let them look, as much as they pleased, for green is good for the eyes. What a big world it is, said all the young ones, for they certainly had much more room now than when they lay in the eggs. Do you think this is the whole world? Said the mother. It extends far beyond the other side of the garden, right into the parson's field. But there I have never been. You are all here, are you not? Minus, and thereupon she stood up. No, not all, the largest egg is still there. How long is this to last? I am really tired of it. And then she sat down again. Well, how are you getting along? Asked an old duck who had come to pay her a visit. It takes such a long time with one of the eggs, said the setting duck. It will not hatch. But just take a look at the others, they are the prettiest ducks I have ever seen. They all look like their father, the wretch, he never comes to see me. Let me see the egg that will not hatch, said the old visitor. Depend upon it, it is a turkey egg. I was fooled that way once and had my trouble and anxiety with the young ones, for you see, they are afraid of the water. I could not get them out. I quacked and scolded, but it was no use. Let me see the egg. Yes, that's a turkey egg. You just let it lie where it is and go teach the other children how to swim. I think I will sit on it a little while longer, said the duck. I've sat so long now that I may as well sit a few days more. Just as you please, said the old duck, and then she went away. At last the egg broke. Peep! Peep! Said the little one, and tumbled out. It was very large and very ugly. The duck looked at it. That is a terribly large duckling, said she. None of the others looks like that. Can it really be a turkey chick? Well, we shall soon find out. Into the water he must go, if I have to push him into it. The next day the weather was fine. The sun shone on all the green burdock leaves, and the mother duck with all her little ones came down to the water's edge. Splash! Into the water she jumped. Quack! Quack! She called, and then one duckling after another tumbled out. The water closed over their heads, but they came up in an instant, and swam capitally. Their legs worked of themselves, and there they were all in the canal, the ugly grey duckling with them. No, it's not a turkey, said the mother. See how well it uses its legs, and how upright it holds itself. It is my own child. On the whole it's very pretty, when one takes a good look at it. Quack! Quack! Minus, come with me. I'll take you into the world and introduce you in the poultry yard, but always keep close to me so that no one treads on you. And look out for the cat. So they went to the poultry yard. There was a terrible commotion, for two families were quarreling about an eel's head, and in the end the cat got it. "See, that is the way of the world," said the mother duck, and she wetted her bill, for she too wanted the eel's head. "Use your legs," she said. "See that you bustle about, and bow your heads before the old duck yonder. She is the most distinguished of all here. She is of Spanish blood, minus that is why she is so fat, and do you see she has a red rag round her leg? That's something particularly fine and the greatest distinction a duck can receive. It signifies a wish not to lose her, and that she may be recognized by man and beast. Shake yourselves, minus keep your legs apart. A well-bred duck keeps its legs apart as much as possible, just like father and mother so. Now bend your necks and say quack." And they did so, but the other ducks round about looked at them and said quite loudly, "Just look at that. Now we're to have all that crowd too, as if there were not enough of us already. And minus fie. How that duckling yonder looks, we won't stand that." And one duck flew up immediately, and bit it in the neck. "Let him alone," said the mother, "he does no harm to anyone." "Yes, but he's too large and peculiar," said the duck that did the biting. "And therefore he must be licked." "Those are pretty children the mother has there," said the old duck with the rag around her leg. "They re all pretty, but that one, that was a failure. I wish she could alter it." "That cannot be done, your highness," replied the mother duck. "He is not pretty, but he has a really good disposition, and swims as well as any other, I may even say, better. I think he will grow prettier, and in time become smaller. He has lain too long in the egg, and therefore is not properly shaped." And then she smoothed the feathers on its neck and patted it here and there. "Moreover, he is a drake," she said, "and therefore it doesn't make so much difference. I think he will be very strong. He will make his way all right." "The other ducklings are lovely," said the old duck. "Make yourselves at home, and if you find an eel's head, you may bring it to me." And so they made themselves at home. But the poor duckling that had been hatched out last and looked so ugly, was bitten and pushed and jeered at, and as much by the chickens as by the ducks. "He is too big," they all said. The turkey cock, who had been born with spurs and therefore thought himself an emperor, blew himself up like a ship in full sail, and bore straight down upon it. Then he gobbled, and grew very red in the face. The poor duckling did not know whether to stand or sit, and became very miserable, because it was so ugly, and was scoffed at by the whole yard. Thus the first day passed. And thereafter things became worse and worse. The poor duckling was chased about by everyone. Even its brothers and sisters were quite unkind to it, and said, "If only the cat would catch you, you ugly creature." And the mother said, "Would that you were far away." And the ducks bit it. And the chickens pecked it, and the girl who had to feed the poultry kicked at it with her foot. Then it ran away, flying over the hedge fence, and making the little birds in the bushes fly up in fear. "That is because I am so ugly," thought the duckling. It shut its eyes, but kept running on. Thus it came to the great moor where the wild ducks lived. Here it lay all night, weary and downcast. In the morning the wild ducks flew up, and looked at their new companion. "Pray, who are you?" they asked, and the duckling turned in every direction and bowed as well as it could. "You are remarkably ugly," said the wild ducks. "But we are quite indifferent to that, so long as you do not marry into our family." Poor thing! It certainly did not think of marrying, and only hoped to be allowed to lie among the reeds, and drink some of the swamp water. There it remained 2 whole days. Then came thither 2 wild geese, or properly speaking, 2 wild ganders. It had not been long since each had come out of the egg, and that is why they were so saucy. "Listen, comrade," said one of them, "Carrot, carrot, you are rather ugly, but I like you. Will you go with us and become a bird of passage? Near here on another moor are a few sweet lovely wild geese, all unmarried, and all able to say honk. You have a chance of making your fortune, ugly as you are. Piff! Paff! Resounded at that moment through the air, and both ganders fell dead in the swamp. The water became blood red. Piff! Paff! Sounded again, and whole flocks of wild geese rose from the reeds. Then there was another report. A great hunt was on. The hunters were lying in wait all round the moor, and some were even sitting in the branches of the trees which spread far over the reeds. The blue smoke rose like clouds among the thick trees, and was wafted far away across the water. The hunting dogs came minus splash, splash, minus into the swamp, and the rushes and the reeds bent down on every side. The poor duckling was in great fright. It turned its head to put it under its wing, but at that moment a great big dog stood close beside it. His tongue hung far out of his mouth and his eyes gleamed wickedly. He thrust out his head toward the duckling, showed his sharp teeth, and minus splash, splash, minus on he went without seizing it. Oh, heaven be thanked, sighed the frightened duckling. I am so ugly that even a dog does not care to bite me. And so it lay quite still while the shots whizzed through the reeds as the guns banged away. Not until late in the day was silence restored, but the poor duckling did not dare rise. It waited several hours more before it looked about, and then it hurried away from the moor as fast as it could. It ran over field and meadow. The wind was so strong that it was difficult to make any headway. Toward evening the duckling came to the miserable little hut of a peasant. This hut was so dilapidated that it seemed undecided on which side to fall, and therefore had remained standing. The wind whistled round the duckling in such a way that the poor creature was obliged to sit down in order to withstand it. The tempest grew worse and worse. Then the duckling noticed that one of the hinges of the door had given way, and the door hung at such a slant that it could slip through the gap into the room, and this it did. Here lived an old woman with her cat and her hen. The tomcat, whom she called Sonny, could arch his back and purr. He could even give out sparks, but this was when one stroked his fur the wrong way. The hen had unusually short legs, and therefore she was called Chickabiddy Shootshanks. She laid good eggs, and the woman loved her as if she had been a child. In the morning the strange duckling was at once noticed, and the tomcat began to purr and the hen to cluck. Carrot, what is the trouble? Asterisk, said the woman, looking all round. She could not see very well, and so she thought the duckling was a fat duck that had strayed. Asterisk, this is a rare prize slash, she said. Carrot, now I shall have duck eggs. I hope it is not a drake. That I must find out. And so the duckling was admitted on trial for 3 weeks, but no eggs came. The tomcat was master of the house, while the hen was the lady, and they always said, we and the rest of the world. For they thought they were half the world, and by far the better half. The duckling thought one might have a different opinion, but that the hen would not allow. Can you lay eggs? She asked. No, then have the goodness to hold your tongue. And the tomcat said, can you curve your back and purr? And give out sparks? No, then you cannot have any opinion of your own, when sensible people are speaking. So the duckling sat in a corner and felt very blue. Then it thought of the fresh air and the sunshine, and was seized with such a strange longing to float on the water that it could not help telling the hen of it. What are you thinking of? Cried the hen. You have nothing to do, and that's why you have such fancies. Purr or lay eggs and such notions will pass away. But it is so charming to swim on the water, said the duckling, so refreshing to let it close above one's head. And to dive down to the bottom. Yes, that must be a pleasure truly, said the hen. You must have gone crazy. Ask the cat about it, he's the cleverest person I know. Minus ask him if he likes to swim on the water or to dive. I won't speak about myself. Ask your mistress, the old woman, no one in the world is wiser than she. Do you think she has any desire to swim, and to let the water close over her head? Carrot, you don't understand me, said the duckling. Carrot, we don't understand you. Then pray who is to understand you? You surely don't pretend to be more clever than the cat and the old woman. Minus, I won't say anything as to myself. Don't be conceited, child, and be grateful for all the kindness you have received. Did you not get into a warm room, and have you not fallen in with company from which you may learn something? But you are a chatterer, and it is not pleasant to associate with you. Believe me, I speak for your good. I tell you disagreeable things, and by that one may always know one's true friends. Now set yourself to learn to lay eggs or to purr and give out sparks. Carrot, I think I will go out into the wide world, said the duckling. Yes, do go, replied the hen. And then the duckling went. It swam on the water and dived, but it was slighted by every creature because of its ugliness. Now came the autumn. The leaves in the forest turned yellow and brown, the wind caught them so that they danced about, and the sky looked very cold. The clouds hung low heavy with hail and snowflakes, and on the fence sat the raven, cling. Ooh! Because of the cold, yes, it was enough to make one shiver just to think about it. The poor little duckling certainly had a hard time of it. One evening, minus the sun was just setting in all his beauty, minus a great flock of handsome birds came out of the bushes. They were dazzlingly white, with long flexible necks. They were swans. They uttered a very peculiar cry, spread out their great glorious wings, and flew away from that cold region to warmer lands, to fair open waters. They mounted so high, so very high. And the ugly little duckling had such a strange feeling itself. As it watched them, it turned round and round in the water like a wheel, stretched out its neck toward them, and uttered such a strange loud cry that it frightened itself. Oh! It could not forget those beautiful, happy birds. When it could see them no longer, it dived down to the very bottom, and, when it came up again, it was quite beside itself. It did not know the name of those birds, nor whither they were flying, but it loved them as it had never loved anyone before. It was not at all envious of them. How could it think of wishing to possess such loveliness? It would have been glad if the ducks had only endured its company, minus the poor ugly creature. And the winter grew cold, very cold. The duckling was forced to swim about in the water to prevent the surface from freezing entirely, but every night the hole in which it swam about became smaller and smaller. It froze so hard that the ice sheet resounded, with sharp cracking noises. The duckling was obliged to use its legs continually to prevent the hole from closing. At last it became exhausted and lay quite still, and thus froze fast in the ice. Early in the morning a peasant came by. When he saw what had happened, he broke the ice crust with his wooden shoe, and carried the duckling home to his wife. There it revived. The children wanted to play with it, but the duckling thought they wanted to hurt it, and in its terror flew into the milk pan, so that the milk splashed out into the room. The woman screamed and threw up her hands, at which the duckling flew down into the butter tub, and then into the flour barrel and out again. My, how it did look then! The woman screamed and struck at it with the fightings, and the children, laughing and shouting, tumbled over one another in their efforts to catch the duckling. Happily the door stood open, and the poor creature rushed out among the bushes in the newly fallen snow. There it lay as in a faint, quite exhausted. But it would be too sorrowful a tale to tell all the misery and want which the duckling had to endure that winter. It was lying out on the moor among the reeds when the sun began to warm again, and the larks to sing. Beautiful spring had come. Then one day the duckling lifted its wings, they beat the air more strongly than before and bore it swiftly away. Before it well knew how it all happened, it found itself in a great garden, where the apple trees were in bloom and the fragrant lilacs bent their long green branches down to the winding streams. Oh, how beautiful it was, such gladness of spring! From the thicket came 3 glorious white swans, they ruffled their feathers and swam lightly on the water. The duckling knew the splendid creatures, and a peculiar sadness oppressed him. I will go up to them, to the royal birds, and they will kill me because I who am so ugly dare approach them. But that is of no consequence. Better to be killed by them than to be pinched by the ducks, pecked by the chickens, kicked about by the girl who takes care of the poultry yard, and to suffer in winter. It flew into the water and swam toward the beautiful swans. They saw it, and came sailing down upon it with rustling feathers. "Kill me," said the poor creature, and bent its head down upon the water, expecting nothing but death. But what did it see in the clear water? It beheld its own image minus, and lo! It was no longer a clumsy dark grey bird, ugly and repulsive to look at, it was itself a swan. It matters nothing to be born in a duckyard, if one has only lain in a swan's egg. The duckling felt quite glad because of all the misery and misfortune it had suffered, for now it could rightly value its happiness and all the splendor that surrounded it. And the great swans swam round it and stroked it with their bills. Into the garden came little children, who threw bread and corn into the water. The youngest cried, "There is a new one." And the other children shouted joyously, "Yes, a new one has arrived." They clapped their hands and danced about, then ran to their father and mother. Bread and cake were thrown into the water, and all said, "The new one is the most beautiful of all. So young and handsome." And the old swans bowed their heads before it. Then it felt quite bashful and hid its head under its wing, for it did not know what to think. It was very happy, and yet not at all proud, for a good heart is never proud or conceited. It thought how it had been persecuted and despised, and now it heard them saying that it was the most beautiful of all beautiful birds. Even the lilac bush bent its branches straight down into the water before it, and the sun shone warm and mild. Then it shook its feathers, lifted its slender neck, and cried joyously from the depths of its heart, "Never dreamed of such happiness, when I was still the ugly duckling."
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content.